Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Elephants in the Room. My name is Nicole. I'm your host and hi. Wow. I just need to take a deep breath because let me just start by saying today has been so hard. And I obviously am filming today and I planned on filming. I didn't expect my day to be as emotionally exhausting as it is. And so part of me feels bad because I'm coming to you guys with a glass empty of energy and I feel so emotionally exhausted. And to be honest, I have still been trying to figure out how I want to show up on this podcast for you guys. And obviously, I know I always want to be vulnerable. But I have been feeling like I want to show up a little bit lighter and a little bit, just more free, a little bit lighter, a little bit more positive, a little bit more on the healing side of life and the good side of life. But naturally, we all go through really hard things. And I thought, what better than just show up as I am and be really vulnerable with you guys today and just talk to you guys about some of what I'm going through and hopefully be able to relate to some of you, be able to help some of you, be able to help some of you feel less alone, feel heard, and also just process my emotions with you guys because you truly are my friends. You guys are my family. In a weird way, we're all connected in a beautiful way. But yeah, so where do I even begin? I'll just start by saying this. After years of healing, forgiving, and doing the work, as you guys know, I've been in therapy for many, many years, and I have done so much healing in my life from my childhood trauma, from my relationship trauma, from so many things that I've been through. But I feel like now, in this current era of my life, and every era is going to be different, but I feel like I'm finally in an era where I'm starting to actually feel bad for myself. Not in a victim way or in a way where I want to get all this sympathy, but in a human way. I think for the first time in a long time, I think I've actually started to enter into more of a safe place in my life in a way. Where I have less danger among me, and part of that has kind of made me start to maybe feel some of the grief that I've never really been able to feel. And also, all of this to say, I've talked about this before, and I hope I'm not boring you guys with this, but I've been going through something so overwhelming, stressful, exhausting the last about 6 months. So if you notice a shift in me the last 6 months, that's what it's been through, or that's what it's about. And I can't say exactly what it is because it ties to family and there's some legal stuff going on and it's a lot. It's a long story and I can't necessarily share with you guys, at least right now. I may be able to in the future. But what I will say is it has been the most triggering, tiring, and painful thing because I felt hopeless in a lot of ways. I felt like I have to keep it all together. I felt so much pressure. I felt just so many different types of ways. And it's been really triggering in a lot of ways because a lot of this family stuff that I have healed from or started to heal from, some of it's really started to come up and really affect me. And just, I think I've just started to have a lot of grief around some things that I felt like I had already healed from, that I felt like I'd already dealt with. But I think I'm starting to have like a grief in a way that I've never really experienced it before. And I think part of that has just been, I finally just kind of started to feel sad for myself and things that I've been through and the things that I have to continue to go through. And I don't know if I've ever really let myself really, really feel that. And I'm still really uncomfortable with it. And I'm still trying to figure it out and working with my therapist. And sometimes I feel like I'm going absolutely crazy and I'm like, what is going on? But I just wanted to talk about all of it with you guys today because I can only assume that there's some of you that can relate and understand what I'm feeling and going through. So I think a lot of the pain and the anger and the grief that has been buried beneath understanding and compassion for others is coming out. In this episode, we're going to explore the psychology behind self-compassion, the guilt that can come with anger, and what it means to hold space for both empathy and righteous pain and anger. So, I think this is all so hard. And it's honestly even hard to speak on. I am trying to find a way to let myself really matter in my own story of pain and trauma and all the things I've been through. And this ties into some trauma responses. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which I know many of you have probably heard about. I said, I don't know if you have, but probably many of you have. But I feel like the most common talked about is fight and flight. But there's also freeze and there's also fawning. So fawning is something that I have definitely struggled with in my life. And I don't even know how much I was aware of it at the time, but as I've continued to be in therapy and continue to work through some of these things and looked at some of the situations I've been in and also even look at how I now respond to being in fight or flight, sometimes I do tend to fawn. It's kind of my natural response. So I would say fight and fawn are probably my most common fight or flight responses, survival mode responses. But let's talk a little bit about fawning. Fawning is when we appease, we people please, and we over empathize with others to stay safe. Compassion for others can become a survival mechanism that disconnects us from our own pain. I think that is one of the hardest things about some of this is that sometimes literally to be able to survive in the relationships you have or whatever situation you're in, you literally have to fawn, and you learn that that's a way that you can almost ignore and numb your pain. It's just by appeasing others, people pleasing, and just over empathizing with others. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but why is it so easy for us to give, like, how do I say this? Why is it so easy for us to give the love and the empathy that we so deeply deserve to others, but not to ourselves? Like, we are so quick to forgive other people when they wrong us. We are so quick to understand why someone hurt us and take them away from the responsibility of the pain that they caused you because, well, hurt people hurt people. Absolutely, hurt people. But if we never bring light and bring attention to the injustice of just ignoring the way that people wrong us, we aren't healing. We aren't giving ourselves that understanding and compassion and empathy, because just as much as we give it to someone else for the way that they've hurt us and why they've hurt us, we also have to give ourselves this empathy and love of being like, that wasn't okay. What they did wasn't okay. And maybe they did the best that they could, but it wasn't enough. And my pain is just as valid as the pain that led them to do that to me. And so I think it's really hard because we think that it has to be one way or the other. That if we forgive someone and that if we give them empathy or understanding for why they hurt us or why they did something wrong, that we have to ignore the pain that we experience because of that thing. Because typically attached with pain is grief. And part of grief is being angry. So how are we allowed to be angry and also understanding, and also it's just like so hard. It's so hard to do. And I think that's because we think it's so black and white. But I think I'm starting to realize that it's important to do both. Just as much as I give that love and that understanding to others and that grace and that compassion and that I empathize with their pain and why it led them to this moment, I have to do that for myself too. I have to do that for what has happened to me and what I've been through. And that's okay. It's okay to do both, but it can feel impossible because anger is so intense. And sometimes it's easier to just pretend like it's all okay and it's fine and I forgive them and I love them and it's fine, than actually deal with the pain and deal with the anger. But that doesn't actually produce any good fruit, and it doesn't actually help us to heal, and it also doesn't actually help us to forgive people, because we then become bitter towards people. We become resentful towards people because we don't ever hold space for our anger, and that's not good. So compassion for others can become a survival mechanism that disconnects us from our own pain. And I want to talk about why this is hard and why this happens so much. But guys, it's so hard. It's so hard to navigate things that happen to us and things that have happened in our lives, because we naturally want to love and understand where the other person is coming from. And also because we know our own flaws, we know ways that we've failed in life. And so it's so much easier for us to look at someone and see them in such a good light and have so much empathy and compassion for them, because we don't know all of their flaws like we know all of our flaws. So it's easy sometimes to feel like, well, we deserve it. I deserve it because I'm imperfect and I've made mistakes. And so I can't expect other people to be perfect. And no, you can't expect other people to be perfect, but that doesn't also excuse people's bad behavior and what people did to you. And so I think finding the balance of that is really seriously so impossible. It feels that way, at least. But I think it's so important to allow space for your anger and for your frustration and for your pain. And that doesn't mean you can't also empathize and love and forgive. And I think trying to do both of them is really, really hard. And that's something I'm trying to figure out. So I think part of it is that we naturally love to over-identify with being understanding. We all, I think, naturally want to be understanding, loving people, right? That's like a good thing. It's a good character trait. And especially if we have any kind of moral or religious belief, we want to be selfless, loving people. And part of that is being someone who's really understanding. And even though I think being understanding is so important and so beautiful, because you never know what someone is going through. You never know what led someone up to the moment of why they hurt you or hurt someone else, or the way, or why they're acting out the way that they are. Even though being understanding is so important, it can also turn into self-abandonment. Because when we overextend that understanding side of us, and we don't also flip that and give ourselves that understanding of why we're hurt by the pain, why we're hurt by what someone did, why we're hurt by someone's actions, we're not really being understanding, because we're only being understanding to other people. And so it's like, how can we really shift that and be understanding towards ourselves? And I feel like that has been literally my journey since my frontal lobe was developed, or just like the last maybe year, I don't know. But I feel like I finally started to be able to give myself some of what I've given to others my whole entire life. Some of the love, some of the respect, some of the kindness, the empathy. But it's been so freaking hard because it comes with so much guilt and shame, because for some reason I don't feel like I'm entitled to it. For some reason, every time I set a boundary or stand up for myself or acknowledge what someone did to me, or an injustice that has been done to me. Not that I'm perfect and haven't hurt other people. That's not what I'm saying. But anytime I do that, I feel like crap about myself, and my like habits and my coping mechanisms that I developed as a child to fight or fawn or freeze come in, and I feel like I can't give myself that. I feel bad. It's like every time I stand up for myself, I feel like then I'm like, oh, was I too harsh? Was I too mean? Did I say, like, you know what I mean? Do you guys know what I mean? And it's such a struggle because in the moment I'm trying to honor myself, which is good, but it comes with so much guilt and shame because I haven't lived my life like that. So now that I'm trying to do that, it makes me feel like a selfish piece of crap. And I'm like, I don't want to be a selfish piece of crap. I want to be a loving person. So it's so hard. It's so hard. And this relates to enmeshment trauma, where your emotions and identity are wrapped up in others' needs. You learn that your role is to care for others, not be cared for. Oh my gosh. I talked about this in my last episode, or maybe the one before that, but the grief that I started to experience in the car a couple weeks ago because I realized that I've never been taken care of ever. I've always had to be the one taking care. And it's funny because it's so crazy. I mean, anyone who knows my story kind of knows this, but like literally my whole life, I've had to like take care of myself. I would coin myself as a very independent person since I was a kid. I've had to hold it all together. I've had to be the big guy. I've had to be the better person, the bigger person. I've had to take care of myself. I've had to provide for myself. Like literally, I got a job when I was 15 and I've had a job ever since then. And the day when I was 17, I got a full-time job and I've literally worked full-time, up until like 2 years ago. And I was helped by people, like someone who very much helped me that I love so much. My sister and her husband, they took me in high school and took care of me, and I love them so much and I'm so thankful for that. When I got taken away by DCFS from my mom, and I'm so thankful for them for that. And I'm not saying that I've never been helped by people or taken care of in ways. I absolutely have, and everyone who's put efforts in to take care of me, I'm so thankful for. My aunt and uncle took me in when I was young, when my mom got in a car accident. My ex-husband's family did so much for me. There's people, like I'm not discrediting any of those people or those things, but generally I've always had to take care of myself. I've always had to be independent. And so now I'm in a situation where David, my partner, he like totally takes care of me. He takes care of me financially. He has done so much to bless me and to help my family and to, he's just been the best and no strings attached. Like he does it just because he loves me. And I'm so thankful for that. Because even though I make money from this podcast and from social media, and I quit my job because I started making enough to quit. I was making what I was making at my job. I could definitely not do all the things that I do or have all the things now without David and without the way that he has been towards me. And it's been so freeing because I've been able to finally like walk out of such a stressful state in my life. All the things I've always wanted to be that I've never been able to be. And I'm so thankful. And that doesn't mean there's not still really stressful stuff in my life, because trust me, there is. And everything that you get in this life comes with something for sure. But all of that to say, I very much got wrapped up with enmeshment trauma, which is I literally identified who I was with my caretaker role. Being a caretaker, taking care of others, saving, helping, fixing. And it's not that it's bad to do those things, but why are you doing them? And I learned that from such a young age. I learned that the way that I stayed safe was to stay quiet and to stay stable, to stay calm, to stay like, to just hold it all together. Like it's, I've been told so many times, you're so strong, you've been through so much. Oh, how do you deal with this? You're so this, you're so that. And so many times in my life where I saw that as a compliment, like, oh my gosh, that's so nice that they think that. And now I'm like, no, I don't want to be so strong to the point where I'm letting myself be ruined by other people and their actions and their choices, and I'm still showing up for them and taking care of them and ignoring my needs and neglecting my needs and hurting myself, all in efforts to take care of others because I place my identity so much in it. And I just learned from a young age that if I just take care of others and if I just keep going and if I just push on and press on, I'll be fine. And that's not true. It's like it's all catching up to me and I'm unlearning all of it, but it's so hard and confusing and messy and When we suppress our own pain in favor of understanding others, we don't heal, we bypass. And that was something hard that I had to learn, because I just thought, well, if I can understand why someone else hurt me, and if I can see that they were hurt before and hurt people, and that's why they hurt me, it makes it okay. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't make it go away. It's like sometimes we have to feel the anger, the righteous anger of being upset by being wrong, just as we feel for other people. It's like, think about your friends or your family. When you see someone that you love get hurt by someone, or you see them done dirty, or you see someone do something that isn't right, that isn't fair, that isn't ethical to them, you're upset, you're angry. You have a righteous anger. You want to protect them. You want better for them. But why can't we ever give that to ourselves? Why do we do that for others, but we don't do that for ourselves? It's so much easier to do that for other people, but not for ourselves. And so I think now I'm kind of finally starting to feel that for myself. And I'm like, I'm really angry because I'm like, that poor little girl. I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I feel so sad for her, and I love her, and I want to protect her, and I want her to see that what happened to her isn't okay. And that doesn't mean I have to hate or be angry or hold back forgiveness from anyone in my life who's hurt me. But it does mean that I have to accept that frustration or that anger or that, whatever emotions, the grief that comes with it. And it's really hard to do both. It's really hard to do both because I think sometimes when we start to feel this anger, we start to feel this frustration or whatever it may be, we think, oh, does this mean I didn't forgive that person? Does this mean that I'm not healed? Does this mean da-da-da-da-da? And it's like, no, it can just mean that your pain just wants a space to be felt. Sometimes our pain just needs to be felt, and that's it. It doesn't mean it's going to stay there forever. It doesn't mean you're going to be angry forever. It doesn't mean you're going to be sad forever. But sometimes we really, really, really have to let ourselves feel those emotions and to not beat ourselves up for them. And that is so freaking hard to do. And that's what I'm trying to say and what I'm going through. I think in so many areas of my life, I have seen what someone has done to me or what someone has done to someone else, and I just excuse it because I can see that there's a deeper root. There's a pain, there's a trauma within them that made them that way or that pushed them to do that thing. So it's like I have grace and compassion and empathy for them. But I think it's still important to allow ourselves to feel that hurt and be vulnerable about what it feels like. There's a thing called cognitive empathy override. When our rational mind explains away emotional pain, it's a defense that can feel mature but disconnects us from emotional processing, which the nervous system needs to heal. I think we do that all the time in this life. We're like, well, yeah, so they hurt me and they did that, but it's fine because they had a hard childhood. And we just pretend like the hurt and the pain just goes away because it's fine because, well, I get it. And it's like, even though that can be seen as like a really good way to live life and a positive way to live life and not let things get you down, what I'm realizing now is some of these things are coming up from the surface in my life is that doesn't heal that wound of betrayal or pain. It just kind of pushes her down a little bit and makes you feel good about yourself because, well, I forgave them and, well, I understand why they hurt me, so it's fine. It's like, no, it's not. It's not fine. And that doesn't mean, like I said, you have to hate them, that you can't love them, that you can't extend them grace. But are you also doing that for yourself? Because if someone you love gets hurt, how do you respond? Do you tell your friend, oh, well, that person had a hard life or that person had this happen, so it's fine what they did to you? Would you ever say that to your friend if they got hurt by someone did something wrong to them? No. You would be like, I'm so sorry. That is so frustrating. They shouldn't have done that. You would empathize with them. You would meet them where they're at. And yes, eventually you would help them to let go of it, to heal, to forgive, to move on. You shouldn't hold things against people. But our internal process is a process of healing, and we have to honor each and every part of it, or it just comes back up. And that's what I'm realizing. And there's such a guilt for feeling bad for ourselves. There's such a guilt. Like, who am I to feel bad for myself? I just need to move on and get over it. That's what everyone always says, right? That's what we tell ourselves. But internalized shame really links and usually stems from families or growing up in families where pain was minimized or ignored. And I talked about this a little bit before, but yeah, just the whole idea of like, you're the strong one. I want to be the strong one. I want to always have it together. Like, we tie so much of our worth and our value into how much pain we can endure. And it's like, we shouldn't do that. Being strong is a survival. It's not a character trait that we should necessarily like be proud of. It's like, yes, it's good that we can get through hard things, but it's like, I don't know. It's just like such an interesting compliment and something that people have said to me many times. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, you're so strong. Like, oh, but it's like, I don't want to be strong. I don't want to have to go through everything I went through and that I go through. Like, it's just such an interesting thing. It's like, there's nothing wrong with being strong and there's nothing wrong with being adaptable and pushing through hard things. But at the core of it, we shouldn't have to. Like, we shouldn't have to. But we do, which is hard and we have to accept. But it's like, I think we take pride in being the strong one. And so that subconsciously can make us feel like we can't ever break down. And what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with being strong. It's good. It's good to be strong. I'm not trying to say that it's bad to be strong, but what I'm saying is don't be so strong and identify with being the strong one so much that you never let yourself break down, that you never let yourself feel pain, that you never let yourself feel anger for what's happened to you or what's been done to you. Because you can be strong and also acknowledge that what happened to you wasn't okay. And that what you've been through isn't okay. And you survived and you recovered and you moved on with your life, which makes you strong. But let's not over-identify with being strong, because part of healing is breaking down and really feeling things and being vulnerable, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and I think I saw this when I was doing some research about it. IFS is internal family systems. We all carry, quote, managers like guilt, shame, perfectionism that try to prevent us from accessing our wounded parts. Feeling bad for yourself may activate shame because that part believes being vulnerable means being weak. You're not weak for feeling pain. You're wise for finally facing it. And I'm talking to myself here, and you guys, I am one big mess of a human most of the time. I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert. These are things I research and learn about, and I share my own personal experience to talk about it and to bring light to it. I never want to come from a superior place or like, I know something you guys don't know. This is all knowledge that I'm just trying to learn about, and I'm trying to meet you guys where I'm at and talk about it so we can find more productive and healthier ways to heal and to cope and to deal with all of life's challenges. So I think this is something that I'm really working to do, and something that I need to do, and something that I think could definitely help me. And it is holding to truths. I think it's really easy to look at something that we've been through or something that someone has done to us and say, well, I get it. I understand why they hurt me. Because we are all such highly empathetic people, we can usually look at someone and see the pain that they've been through and the damage that they've been through, which then probably led them or may have led them to this point where they decided to do something to hurt you, something that was wrong. And we get it. And in a way, we naturally all want to relate to one another. We want to understand each other. We want to give empathy to one another. So even if we don't exactly relate to exactly what that person has been through, we oftentimes can try to put ourselves in their shoes based off of an experience that we had that was similar. And so we love understanding people. And that's such a beautiful thing, is to understand people. So it's okay to understand why someone hurt you and have grace and love and compassion for them. But you also have to be able to hold the space to say, I still feel hurt by what they did. I understand, or can believe that I understand why they hurt me, but I still feel hurt about it. Instead of, well, I understand why they hurt me, so it's okay. No, two truths. Two, I understand why they hurt me, but I still feel hurt. You have to be able to hold space for both of them, because guys, I've tried not doing that, and it's led me here where I'm having things from years and years and years ago come up, and I'm like, oh, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm feeling this grief about it. And it's because instead of holding those two truths and allowing myself to be hurt while also understanding why someone hurt me, I focus so much on understanding why someone hurt me. And so holding both of those, acknowledging both of those, accepting both of those. And I said this before, but they did the best they could, and it still wasn't enough. It's okay to look at someone and say, but they did the best they could. I'm not going to hold it against them. I'm not going to resent them. I'm not going to be bitter. I forgive them. I release them. But it still wasn't enough. And I'm still hurt by it. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but you can forgive someone before you fully heal from what they did to you. You don't have to get to the finish line before you release someone from the bondage of what they did to you, from the sentence of what they did to you. But that does not mean that pain just goes away. That time that you need to heal still has to have its process. And sometimes it's not convenient, it's not quick, and sometimes it takes years. We can forgive someone and still be hurt by what they did to us. That is okay. That is actually biblical. You let them go of it, but that doesn't mean you ignore that broken heart that you have, that wound that you have. And I think the hard part of that is that it's really hard to hold conflicting truths, because sometimes it can feel like those things go against each other. But I think it's important to try to hold both of those instead of trying to resolve it, because naturally we want to resolve things. And that's the next thing I was going to say is the brain seeks cognitive closure. It wants clean answers, but healing often requires emotional flexibility, the ability to sit with ambiguity, especially when love and harm come from the same person. So I think that we want to solve things. We want an answer. We want a clean cut closure when it comes to the things we go through in this life. But sometimes it's just not that way. And I think when we try so hard to make it that way, we can teeter-totter one side too high or too low. And it can lead to suppressed emotions, suppressed guilt, shame, suppressed pain. And it just makes it hard. It just makes it hard. Now, where do we go from here? I know I've talked about this before, but most of the people who hurt us in our lives are people who we are walking in relationship with, whether it's a family, loved one, friends. When we are close to people, we sometimes see the best of them and the worst of them. And that's because we're all human. And I don't think any of us can sit here and say that we haven't hurt someone, that we haven't failed, that we haven't done something for the wrong intentions ever, that we haven't betrayed someone. In ways, we've all done that. And that's okay. That's part of relationships. That's part of life. That doesn't mean we need to cut people off. But I think the most important thing to having healthy relationships is boundaries. And not every relationship needs intense boundaries, but some do. Sometimes it makes it more impossible to love someone and hold space for them when you have no parameters. Some relationships do need parameters. Some relationships do need boundaries for you to be able to freely love them. Because when you do it without boundaries and the dynamic of that relationship isn't the healthiest or hasn't been the healthiest, or that person has hurt you or you've hurt them, it just leaves so much room for pain, guilt, shame, bitterness, resentment, emotional exhaustion. And I'm learning that in my life. I'm, seeing it play out in real time. And my therapist always reminds me of this, but she's like, Nicole, when you start getting to this point where your capacity is run dry, your emotional capacity in this specific situation, you're now going to take it out on all these other things around you. And that's not fair to those people. It's not fair to you. And it's going to affect your day-to-day life. So what boundaries do you need to set to protect you and to take care of yourself and to limit that capacity? Because when you go way over that capacity, well, then you're drained, then you're angry, then you're tired, then you feel resentful. But if you set boundaries and perimeters, then you're not going to feel any of those ways. And so I think I've been having to do that, and it's so freaking hard and confusing. But we just have to remember that we can love people and set boundaries. We can see their humanity, but still honor ours as well. And I think with that, I'm not someone who's an angry person. I've never been an angry person. That's not my first reaction when I get upset. I'm usually just sad. So I don't feel angry often. I remember when I first felt angry when I first started seeing my therapist. She was like, wait, this is good. Let's sit in this for a second. You're never angry. You're in your angry stage of grief, and this is important. So I'm not someone who gets angry a lot, but I have to let myself feel it. And I think the goal is not to stay in anger. We shouldn't stay angry. It's miserable. Why would we want to stay angry? But we have to honor it as part of our truth. Suppressed anger often turns inward, leading to depression, fatigue, or autoimmune responses. Letting it exist safely and honestly is part of what really heals us. It's just that authenticity and allowing ourselves to feel those things as they come and they go without feeling guilt or shame around them. So if you're like me and you're just now feeling some of the pain of what you've been through, it doesn't mean you're late. It means you're finally safe enough to feel it. And feeling bad for yourself is not a weakness. It's not a victim mindset. It's an act of self-recognition. And you're not always meant to be the strong one. Sometimes you are meant to lean on someone else or something else, a therapist, a friend. You don't always have to hold it together. You're allowed to break down. You're allowed to not be okay. You're allowed to fall apart sometimes. I think I identified so long with holding all together and having a big capacity and being the bigger person and just pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. And it's so much caught up to me in my life. And I'm realizing it's just not sustainable. And it only creates more pain and more fatigue and more drainage. Like, I get so drained. And so then when I get drained like this, I have to remind myself, Nicole, what boundaries are you not setting? Why aren't you setting boundaries? And then I'm like, I'm trying. It's so hard. And I'm fighting with my old ways and my old coping mechanisms that I used to have, that I still have, that I'm trying to actively fight against so I can be a healthy, loving person. Because part of showing up the most loving in relationships is knowing there's boundaries. Because when we have to show up in relationships with no boundaries, we can be in constant fear and anxiety around the bad that could happen, or around how much we know we'll have to give, whatever it is. It just it's not predictable. It's not peaceful. And at this point in my life, at 26 years old, people, I just want peace. I just want peace. And I want to love people, and I want to fight for people. But I also want to fight for me and fight for myself and fight for the little girl who didn't get the care that she so desperately needed. And part of that is me trying to really now care for myself. And I know I said this actually, in last week's episode, about like just finally now being like, I'm going to take care of myself. Like with this whole gut thing I'm doing, it's like really taking that energy and really forcing me to put it on myself. And when I start to run dry, as I am right now, and my emotional capacity is like overflowing, it's so easy for me to neglect my own needs. Like even today with my food and my eating, like I skipped some of my supplements because I was like, I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm not going to take these. Because I had other things that were filling my mind and occupying me. And it's so easy it's just so easy to neglect your own needs and stop taking care of yourself when you're taking care of others. And when you are so exhausted and your emotional capacity has been so pushed, you have nothing to give at the end of the day for yourself. And so this whole thing that I've been doing with my health is like, I actually actively, day to day, minute to minute, have to prioritize my health. It's not easy. It's not convenient. It's not comfortable. And it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of planning. And I'm not going to be perfect. It's not about being perfect. Like I'm going to Europe in a couple weeks, and I'm not going to perfectly follow all the guidelines, but I'm going to do my best. But what I'm saying is it takes a lot for me to show up in that way for myself every day with this food stuff. But it's also me learning how to really show up for myself, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's painful, even when it's annoying, even when it's whatever. And so I just think, guys, if you're younger and you're listening to this and you feel like you struggle with people pleasing, codependency, you're super empathetic, but yet you are depressed, sad, anxious, you have any type of abandonment wound, not even abandonment wound, but I just want to speak to anyone who feels like they take care of everyone else in their lives other than themselves. And I want to tell you, what you're doing is so noble and it's so kind, but it's not what's actually the most loving for them or for you, because destroying ourselves for others or hurting ourselves for others can only go so far before it really, really hurts us. And when we're hurt and when we're run dry and we have nothing, we're not going to be able to give and love others. We're not going to be able to do it from a good place. And I just want to encourage you that who's ever listening to this, just take care of yourself. Do the little things. Just give yourself the love and the compassion and the kindness and the sweetness that you give to all the people you love. Just try. Just try. Because it has serious long-term effects if you don't. and it catches up to you over time. And I'm now on a pursuit of trying to be a loving, giving, empathetic person to everyone, including me. And sometimes that means saying no to others, and sometimes that means setting boundaries, and sometimes that means stepping back from a situation or a relationship that is hurting me to the point that I have to take a step back. Not every relationship you need to do that in, but some of your relationships in your life, some of your friendships in your life, some of the things in your life, you will have to either step back from or set boundaries from. But it's all in good faith to protect your little heart and put you in a better position to love others. Because when your heart is protected, and when you're taking care of your own needs, and when you're taking care of your mental, physical, emotional well-being, you're going to be able to show up and love others so much better. And you're going to have so much more fulfilling relationships in your life that don't drain you. Fulfilling for both people. And it's hard. It's so hard, guys. But I hope that you know that you're so loved, you're so seen. I know every situation is so complex and hard, but I just want you to know that I love you and I'm rooting for you and I get it and I'm sorry and you didn't deserve what you've been through. You don't deserve it, and none of us are perfect, but that doesn't mean we need to excuse the bad things that have happened to us or the bad things that we've done to others. They both have a healing process, and no, it's not just about letting it go and moving on. It's about actually healing it. So, and that's freaking hard most of the time, but it's worth it. So, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for listening. You guys know if you want to support me, you can follow this podcast on all the platforms: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the things. Please leave me a rating or a review if you'd like. Share it with a friend. Share it on your social media story. I love you guys so, so, so much. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.